My name is Lorraine Bennett. I am 71 years old, and I wish I could tell you that age brings wisdom, peace, or even a little protection from the people you love the most. But if you live long enough, you learn that betrayal doesn't care how many birthdays you've had. It was my own son who taught me that lesson. The last thing he said before slamming the door that day was, "You're not family anymore." Mom, just like that. 3 to 4 years of late nights, school projects, flu fevers, mortgage payments, heartbreaks, and prayers reduced to one sentence. I didn't even chase after him. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. The house felt smaller after he left, like the walls were closing in around the echo of his anger. He left because of a woman, of course. Most men do. Her name was Kelsey, all long lashes and sharp smiles. The kind of pretty that photographs well but doesn't reach the soul. My son, Daniel, fell for her the way tired men fall for warmth, blindly, hungrily. Without caution, I sensed trouble the first time she walked into my home. It was a Sunday. The kind of plain afternoon that smells like laundry detergent and leftover coffee. I had a roast in the oven, potatoes boiling, and the old radio playing that same Motown station I'd listened to since my 20s. Daniel had called that morning. "Mom, mind if I bring someone over for dinner?" He'd asked. There was a light in his voice I hadn't heard in years. Not since before the divorce, before the pandemic, before that long gray slump he fell into when he lost his job at the plant. "Of course," I said. "Bring her. I'll make a little extra. That's my girl." He laughed. "You'll love her. She's different." He wasn't wrong about that. When they pulled up, I peeked through the lace curtain the way old women do when they pretend they're not nosy. Daniel came around to the passenger side and opened the door for her. That made me smile. I'd raised him on "You open doors. You don't slam them." She stepped out in high heels that didn't belong on my cracked driveway, tight black pants, and a blouse that cost more than my whole outfit, I'm sure. Long blonde hair. Not the kind that grows that way, but the kind you buy in pieces and clip to your head. Big sunglasses. Even though the sun was hiding behind a cloud, she looked at my little blue house like it was a motel on a road trip she hadn't wanted to take. "Mom," Daniel called as they walked up. "We're here." I wiped my hands on my apron, pasted on my warmest smile, and opened the door. "Get in here before my neighbors judge me for leaving you on the porch," I said. "You must be Kelsey." She took off her sunglasses and gave me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hi, Mrs. Bennett," she said. Her voice had that flat, polished tone you hear from customer service reps and influencers. "It's so nice to finally meet you. Dan's told me so much." "Lorraine," I corrected gently. "Mrs. Bennett makes me feel like a school teacher." "Come in." Daniel hugged me, smelling like cologne and the faintest trace of cigarettes. "Smells amazing in here, Ma," he said. Just like when I was a kid. I tussled his hair before I could stop myself. "You still are a kid," I said. To me, dinner started fine. Sausage and cheese for appetizers, roast and potatoes for the main, apple cobbler for dessert. I asked Kelsey about her job. "I'm in marketing," she said. "What kind?" I asked. She waved a manicured hand. "Digital. Social campaigns. I help brands tell their story online, like ads." I asked. She smiled like I'd said something cute. "More like curated presence," she replied. I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded anyway. She asked me a few questions back. Where did I work? I retired from the hospital 6 years ago. I'd been a night shift nurse for most of my life. Did I live here alone? Yes. Unless you count the ghost of my dead marriage and the raccoon that kept getting into my trash. She laughed politely. Daniel laughed for real. Everything was surface level until the conversation turned, as it always does, to money. "This roast is amazing," Kelsey said, pushing her potatoes around her plate more than eating them. "Dan says you always cooked like this growing up." "I did my best," I said. "It was cheaper than eating out, and I liked knowing what went into our food." "Yeah, Mom raised me on we got food at home." Daniel chuckled. "That was because we didn't have food out there," I said. "You try taking a hungry 5-year-old through a grocery store after a 10-hour shift, and see how many times you say no to chicken nuggets." Kelsey tilted her head. "Speaking of money," she said, turning to Daniel, "did you talk to her yet?" My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "Talk to me about what?" I asked. Daniel cleared his throat. "Right?" he said. "So, Ma, you know things have been going really well at work lately. I got that promotion. And Kels and I, well, we've been thinking about taking the next step." I felt my heart lift a little. Next step meant marriage in my day, grandbabies, holidays with more voices at the table. "That's wonderful," I said. "You know I've been praying you'd find someone you'd want to build a life with." "Exactly," Kelsey said quickly. "We want to build a life. And to do that properly these days, you kind of need to be smart with assets." There it was again. That word, assets. I've never liked it. Makes people sound like numbers. Asterisk. Daniel shifted in his seat. We've been looking at houses, he said. The market's crazy. And Cal's parents offered to help with the down payment, which is huge. But the lender said if we could come up with just a little more, we qualify for something better. Safer neighborhood. Better schools. You know? I nodded slowly. That's good, I said. I'm glad her parents are able to help. Kelsey put down her fork. We were thinking, she said, that maybe you could help a bit too. You know, as an investment in your son's future. Your grandkids' future. I almost laughed. I really did. Baby, I said to Daniel, I live on a nurse's pension and Social Security. I don't have investment money. I have keep the lights on money. He glanced at Kelsey, then back at me. That's not exactly true, Ma. He said. You paid off the house. Double quotes. There it was, yes, I said. I've been paying this mortgage for 32 years. Your father stopped contributing after the divorce. You know that, that's exactly why it makes sense, Kelsey said, leaning in like she was explaining something simple to a child. You're sitting on all this equity, and for what? It's just you here. You could take out a small loan or reverse mortgage, help us with the down payment, and still be totally fine. My polite smile froze. A reverse mortgage, I repeated. Yeah, she said brightly. It's like, the bank gives you money every month based on your house, and you don't even have to pay it back until, like, way later being when I'm dead. I said. That's the whole point of a reverse mortgage, she shrugged. I mean, everyone dies. Might as well use the money while you can. Daniel shifted again. It's not like that, Ma, he said. We talked to a guy. It's safe. And this house is too big for you anyway. You're always complaining about the stairs, remember? I'm complaining because my knees are old. Not because I want to sell my life out from under my feet, I replied. Kelsey's smile tightened. We're not asking you to sell, she said. Just to unlock some of the value. You've had your time here. Now it could help your son have his. You've had your time here. The phrase landed like a stone in my chest. I set my fork down carefully. Daniel, I said, ignoring her for a moment. Do you need money? Are you in trouble? He shook his head quickly. No, Ma, nothing like that. We're fine. This is about planning. About not being short-sighted. I looked between them. How much? I asked. They exchanged a glance. 50 would make a huge difference, Kelsey said. 50,000. But even 20 or 30, I laughed. A sharp-sound child, I said. If I had $50,000 just lying around, do you think I'd still be buying meat when it's on sale? Kelsey's eyes narrowed. But you do have it, she said slowly. Just not in cash. She looked around my little kitchen at the yellow cabinets, the nick in the table, where Daniel had dropped a can of soup when he was 7. This place is worth at least 100 in this market, she went on. Maybe more. You realize that, right? I realize, I said, that this place is where I brought my baby home from the hospital, where I stayed up all night when he had an ear infection, where I cried after your father left, where I celebrated every time you made honor roll. It's where my mother died in that back bedroom because she didn't want to go to a nursing home. I took a breath. I also realized, I said, that I am allowed one thing in this life that is mine. Just one. I have broken my back and my heart for this family. I am not going to sign over my roof so you can have granite countertops. Daniel blinked. Her flashing across his face. Ma, he said. It's not like that. It sounds exactly like that, I replied. Kelsey's voice turned cooler. You're overreacting, she said. We're talking about using an asset smartly. Nobody's trying to take anything from you. Aren't you? I asked. Because it sounds to me like you're asking me to put my home at risk, so you can stretch for something better and forgive me. But I have heard that phrase too many times from men in suits who then disappear. When the bills come due. Daniel's jaw clenched. Why do you always have to be so negative? He asked. This is what I mean when I tell Kels you never support my decisions. You always assume the worst. I assume what I've seen, I said. I've seen banks snatch houses out from under old people who thought they were being smart. I've seen widows sign things they didn't understand because their sons told them it was for the good of the family. I've watched women end up in senior apartments with roaches because they put their children's comfort ahead of their own survival. So you don't trust me, he said. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He was tired. Lines around his eyes, shoulders hunched from years of work that didn't pay what it should. I trusted that once upon a time he would have cut off his own hand before he hurt me. I wasn't sure I trusted the man who sat in front of me now, letting his girlfriend talk about my house like a stock option. I trust you to love me, I said. I don't trust you to understand what you're really asking for. He pushed back from the table. You know what? He said, forget it. I knew this would happen. I told you, Kels, she never sees the bigger picture. It's always about what she's afraid of. I'm afraid of being homeless, I snapped. Excuse me for wanting to die under a roof I paid for. Kelsey stood too, crossing her arms. We are offering you a chance to be part of our future, she said. A chance to help build something that benefits you too. Better neighborhood means safer visits. More space means we can take care of you when you're older. I almost choked. Take care of me. I repeated. By making sure I'm indebted to the same bank that owns your dream house? She rolled her eyes. This is exactly what I meant, she muttered to Daniel. You said she'd be difficult, but I didn't expect this level of stubborn. I've been called those words my whole life. Sometimes they meant won't lie down when we step on her. I think it's time for you to go, I said quietly. Daniel's head snapped toward me. What? He asked. You heard me, I said. Dinner's over. Conversation's over. You're not taking out a loan on this house. Not while I'm alive. Not with my signature. Ma, don't be like that, he said. We're just talking. Why do you always turn things into an attack? I'm not attacking, I said. I am drawing a line. That is something grown women are allowed to do. Kelsey grabbed her purse. Come on, Dan, she said. We don't have to sit here and be insulted. He hesitated, looking at me. Then at her. Fine. He said finally. If you want to live like some scared old woman in a falling down house, that's on you. But don't come crying to me when something breaks, and you can't afford to fix it. He was halfway out the door when he turned back. And don't expect to be part of the house we end up in, he said. Family is a two-way street, Ma. The phrase stung more than I wanted to admit. I have walked down every street there is for you, I replied. I walked down to the welfare office when your father left. I walked into jobs that broke my spine so you could have new shoes on the first day of school. I walked alone into parent-teacher conferences while your father took his girlfriend to Cancun. Don't you dare lecture me about streets. His face went hard and familiar. You know what? He said. You're not family anymore. He said it quietly like a verdict. Then he left. The door rattled in its frame when it slammed. A glass on the table shivered and fell, cracking in half. It was one of the cheap ones. I bought them in a pack of 8 at the dollar store. Still, I stared at the broken pieces like they were something sacred. I didn't cry right away. I loaded the plates into the sink, wrapped the leftovers, turned off the radio, walked room to room, turning off lights, checking locks, moving through the house like a ghost of myself. It wasn't until I sat down on the edge of my bed that the tears came. Not big, dramatic sobs, just a leakage. Quiet streams down my cheeks as I stared at the indentation on the mattress, where my body had slept alone for 20 years. I told myself he'd calm down. He was angry. Anger says things it doesn't mean. He would call in a week, 2 at most. We'd argue some more, maybe. But then we'd talk. That's what we did, we talked. We always had, except we didn't. He didn't call that week or the next. I saw updates on social media. Pictures of Daniel and Kelsey at open houses, smiling under sold signs in front of houses bigger than anything I'd ever lived in. Captions like dreams coming true and manifesting our future. Her parents' usernames were in the comments, full of heart emojis. Mine wasn't there. I stopped checking after a while. My heart could only take so many glimpses of a life I wasn't invited into. 2 months passed. I went to church on Sundays, sat in my usual pew, shook hands with Mrs. Patterson, who always asked about that nice son of yours. I told her he was busy. Work, life, you know how it is. I went to my doctor for my blood pressure medication. He told me to avoid stress. I laughed in his face. I watched game shows in the evenings, talking to the contestants like they could hear me. Because sometimes it's easier to yell at strangers than admit you're lonely. I didn't tell anyone what Daniel had said. I couldn't form the words, you're not family anymore. They rattled around in my chest like loose screws, keeping me up at night. It was exactly 6 to 7 days after that dinner when the doorbell rang at 3 in the morning. I sat up in bed so fast my back spasmed. The room was dark except for the orange glow of a street lamp outside. My clock blinked 3:02 a.m. in accusing red numbers. The doorbell rang again. Long, insistent, I grabbed my robe, tied it tight, and shuffled down the hall. Old houses make different noises at night. Every creak sounded like a warning. I peeked through the peephole and saw a shape on my porch, hunched and shaking. For a second, my brain didn't recognize him. Then he lifted his head, and the porch light caught his face. Daniel. I opened the door so fast I nearly fell with it. Baby? I gasped. What on earth? He stumbled inside before I could finish, the cold air coming with him. His clothes were soaked. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His eyes looked wrong. Well, lock it, he said, his voice hoarse. Please, Ma. Lock the door. I turned the deadbolt out of habit, heart pounding. What happened? I asked. Are you hurt? Did you crash? Is someone after you? He shook his head, then nodded, then shook it again. I didn't know where else to go. He said. I drove around for an hour. The car. I think it's out there somewhere. I don't even know where I parked. I kept thinking. Who's left? Who's left? He ran a trembling hand over his face. You were all that was left, he whispered. Even after what I said. You were still the only person I could think of. I put a hand on his arm. It was like touching a live wire. Sit, I said. Couch, now. I'll get towels. Do you want tea? Of course you don't want tea. It's 3 a.m. What am I saying? He sank onto the couch like someone had cut his strings. His shoulders shook. I'd only seen my son cry like that twice, when his dog died. And when his father didn't show up to his high school graduation, I brought towels anyway. Old habits. I handed him one. He pressed it to his face like a shield. Talk to me, I said, sitting down in the armchair across from him. You're scaring me, Daniel. He dropped the towel in his lap. His eyes were bloodshot, pupils blown wide. I screwed up, he said. I screwed up so bad, Ma. Well, I said carefully, that's not exactly news. Last time we spoke, you told me I wasn't family anymore. That felt like a pretty big screw-up. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I know, he said. God, I know. I replayed that night 1,000 times, You get to yell at me later. Please, I deserve it. But right now I need. He cut himself off, his throat working. I need you to listen, he said. And I need you to think like a nurse again. A very specific kind of dread slid into my bones. What happened? I asked. Is someone sick? Is it you? He shook his head, then nodded, then shook it again. It's not a disease, he said. Not like that, it's Kelsey. I sat back, my stomach dropping. What about her? I asked. He swallowed. She's pregnant, he said. The words hung between us like smoke, and I asked slowly, and it's not that simple, he said. Nothing with her is ever simple. He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. You remember how she kept pushing for the house money? He asked. How she kept saying we had to secure our future? Yes, I said. I remember. I recall it quite clearly, seeing as it ended with my demotion from family status. He winced. After that, he said, we didn't talk to you. You know that. We stopped coming by, she said. She said you were toxic. That you were trying to hold me back. She told me her parents were willing to help us instead. That they'd invest. He rubbed his hands together. Knuckles white. They did, he said. They paid the down payment. We moved into this shiny new townhouse with white cabinets and a gym and a pool. I never had time to use. It looked like those places she always showed me on her phone. Influencer houses, so what's the problem? I asked. Sounds like she got what she wanted. She did, he said. For a while. We threw a housewarming party. Posted the pictures. #blessed. You know the drill. I didn't. But I let him talk, then she started talking about getting ahead. He said, not just paying the bills. Getting ahead. She said we needed to leverage my position at work. I got promoted to floor supervisor at the warehouse. It came with a company card for expenses. Next thing I know, she's putting dinners on it, clothes, networking events. She said it was all business related. That's what the guys at the top do, she said. They blur the lines a little. He scratched at his wrist like something itched under his skin. I knew it was wrong, he said. I knew. But every time I pushed back, she'd say, do you want to live like your mother forever? Counting pennies? Making do. And I'd cave. I thought of the roast at our first dinner together. How she'd eaten like she was doing me a favor. 3 months ago. He went on. My boss called me into his office. They had an audit. They'd gone through the statements. He slid a folder across the desk. Every line I couldn't justify was highlighted in yellow. He closed his eyes. I tried to explain. He said that it wasn't all me. That some of it was mistakes. Some of it was things Kels told me were covered. He said that didn't matter. The card was in my name. Policy says that's theft. My mind flashed back to the new shoes, the car payments. The nights I'd sat at the kitchen table moving numbers around on a piece of paper, deciding which bill got paid and which didn't. Are you saying you're being charged? I asked, criminally. He nodded, a jerky motion. They gave me a choice, he said. Resign quietly, pay back what I could and they wouldn't press charges. Or fight it, lawyer up and risk more. I rubbed my temples. How much are we talking? I asked. 28,000, he said. I exhaled. It might as well have been $1 million for a man with his salary. I took the first option, he said. I quit. I signed a paper admitting I'd misused funds. They said if I stuck to the payment plan and stayed out of trouble, it could stay internal. No cops in Kelsey. I asked. He laughed again, bitter. She said it was temporary, he said. She said we'd figure something out. That when the baby came, we could monetize our story. Start a YouTube channel. Laid off dad and girl boss mom, building from nothing. She said struggle sells. I stared at him. Struggle sells, I repeated. Like we're characters in a show? He rubbed his face harder. I started driving for rideshare. He said, delivering food, anything, but the payments. Ma, they're drowning me. Every month I send them money, and it barely dents the total. The townhouse is a furnace burning cash. Her parents said their part was the down payment. The rest is on us. I wake up with my heart racing at 3 a.m. most nights, and tonight? I asked softly. What was different about tonight? He went very still. Tonight, he said, I found out something about the baby. My stomach clenched. Is the baby okay? I asked, is there something wrong? He shook his head, then hesitated. Depends who you ask, he said. Kelsey says it's an opportunity, I call it. A line I can't cross. He looked at me. And for a moment I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my bed after a nightmare, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. She wants to put the baby on camera, he said. From day one. Birth vlogs, milestones, brand deals. She's already talking to agencies that specialize in family influencers. I blinked. Influencers. I repeated. For an unborn child, she wants sponsorships for diapers, formula, strollers, he said rapidly. She wants to decorate the nursery with logos. She showed me contracts. Ma. Contracts with clauses about parental obligations to maintain posting frequency and exclusive rights to the child's image until age 18. Heat rose in my chest. And you? I asked. What do you want? He swallowed. I want my kid to be a kid, he said. I want them to play in the dirt and eat cereal without someone filming it for ad revenue. I want them to look back at their childhood and see memories, not content. And what did she say when you told her that? I asked. He laughed, short and sharp. She said I was small-minded, he replied. That I was lucky she was thinking big. That if my mother had had half her drive, we wouldn't have had to suffer in that crappy house all those years. A cold calm settled over me. She said that, I repeated. He nodded. I told her to stop talking about you like that, he said. I said you'd done more with less than anyone I knew. She rolled her eyes. She said, your mother is why you think poverty is normal. I'm trying to break the cycle. He clasped his hands together so tight his knuckles turned white. I told her I wasn't signing those contracts, he said. That our kid wasn't going to be a brand. She said it was too late. That she'd already signed. That the agency said only one parent needs two. That can't be legal, I snapped. He has rights as a father. He shook his head. It's not about legal, he said. It's about leverage. They know we're desperate. I'm in debt. She's addicted to the lifestyle. She told me if I didn't go along, she'd tell everyone it was my fault when we lost the house. That she'd say I gambled the money away. That I stole from work. That I'm dangerous. I stared at him. Daniel, I said, my voice low. Did you come here because you want my help? Or because you want my house again? He flinched. I came, he said slowly, because she looked me in the eye tonight and said the same thing I said to you. His voice cracked. She said, if you're not on board with this, you're not family anymore. We sat in that dark living room, the old clock ticking to loud dot for a moment. I didn't speak. I just watched my son's face crumple under the weight of his own words thrown back at him. You know, I said eventually, there's a Bible verse that says we reap what we sow. I've always thought that sounded harsh, but sitting here, I can see the rose pretty clearly. He dropped his head into his hands. I know, he said. I thought of you the second she said it. It was like the floor dropped out under me. All I could hear was my own voice, that night in your kitchen. I wanted to tear my own tongue out. I don't know how you didn't shut the door in my face just now. I looked at him for a long time. Because, I said, I'm not you, and I refused to become what hurt me. He sobbed then, shoulders shaking. I'm so sorry, Ma, he said. I am so damn sorry. You don't have to forgive me. I needed somewhere to go. Somewhere she couldn't frame the narrative. Somewhere I could think. I let him cry. After a while, I got up, went to the kitchen, and put the kettle on. I know you said no one wants tea at 3 a.m, but sometimes the body remembers rituals the mind has forgotten. When I came back with 2 mugs, he had conned a little. Here, I said, handing him one. Careful, it's hot. He wrapped his fingers around it gratefully. So what now? I asked. Besides drinking bad tea on an old couch. He took a shaky breath. I need a lawyer, he said. Not just for the debt. For the baby. I want to know what my rights are. What hers are. What we can and can't sign away. I don't trust anything she puts in front of me anymore. Good, I said. That's the first smart thing I've heard you say in months. He managed a weak smile. He hesitated. I canceled the thing with the house. The reverse mortgage. I never went through with it after that night. Even after we stopped talking. I was angry. But I'm not stupid. Your name is safe. I checked today. Twice, some of the tension I've been carrying eased. I appreciate that, I said. Though I wish I could say I trusted your judgment more than your fear of paperwork. We sat in silence for a while, the tea cooling. Can I stay here? He asked finally, voice small. Just for tonight. I don't want to go back there. Until I've talked to someone who isn't in love. With ring lights, I looked at him, this grown man with gray at his temples and a permanent crease between his eyebrows, and saw the 5-year-old who used to crawl into my bed in the middle of thunderstorms. Of course, I said. You can have your old room. Your dinosaur lamp's still in there somewhere. He laughed, a real one this time. I thought you'd gotten rid of that. He said. I thought you'd gotten rid of me, I replied. Looks like we were both wrong. He slept until noon the next day. I made pancakes like I used to, the cheap kind from a mix, and watched daytime TV while I waited for him to wake up. My phone buzzed 3 times with an unknown number. I let it ring. When he finally emerged, hair wild, eyes swollen, he looked lighter. Still troubled, but lighter. I had the weirdest dream, he said, sitting at the table. You were yelling at me in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, I said. Yeah, he replied. That's what made it weird. Over pancakes, we talked more. Really talked. Not about money, not about houses, but about how we got here. I was so angry that night, he said. At you? At myself. At everything. Cal's kept whispering in my ear that you'd held me back. That if you'd been smarter with money, I'd be further ahead. And I believed it because it hurt less than thinking I'd screwed up my own life. I know, I said. Your father did the same thing. Whispered his failures into my shadow, so he could walk in the sun. I see that now, he said. Doesn't make it forgivable, no, I said. But it makes it understandable. There's a difference. We made a plan. We found a legal aid clinic in the city that handled consumer debt and family law. I wrote down the address and circled it 3 times. You're going to go there, I said. You're going to tell them everything. The job, the card, the contracts she's waving at you, the baby. All of it. He nodded. You're going to stop letting guilt make your decisions, I added. If the court says you owe money, you pay what you can. You don't sign away your child's privacy to fix a hole you to card together. He nodded again. You're going to apologize to me properly when it's not 3 in the morning, and your life isn't on fire, I said. Not this half-gasped sorry between crises. A real apology. With eye contact, he smiled, sheepish. Okay, he said. I will. And you're going to accept, I said, that my house is mine. Not because I love you less than a piece of wood, but because I've never had anything I could call mine before. This is my one selfish thing. I get to have it. He looked around the kitchen at the faded curtains, the chipped countertop. It's not selfish, he said quietly. It's you, it's us. I get it now. He left that afternoon, promising to call me from the clinic. He did. They helped him draft letters to the company to negotiate a more reasonable repayment plan based on his actual income. They explained what he could and couldn't be held liable for. They told him in no uncertain terms that his child was not property, and that if he wanted, he could seek joint custody with restrictions on filming. The road ahead was still steep. There were going to be arguments with Kelsey. Maybe court dates. Maybe worse. I had no illusions that everything would suddenly be okay. But something fundamental had shifted. 2 weeks later, he came by in the early evening. This time, he rang the bell at a normal hour. I opened the door before he even lifted his hand. He held out a crumpled piece of paper. What's this? I asked. The apology you ordered, he said. In writing. Just in case my mouth fails me again, I took the paper. It was a page ripped from a spiral notebook, folded and refolded until the edges were soft. I opened it. Dear Mom, it began in his messy handwriting. I told you you're not family anymore, and that was the biggest lie I've ever told in my life. I read it once standing in the doorway, then again sitting at the table. He listed every way he could remember that I'd been there for him. Every sacrifice he'd ignored. Every time he'd chosen the easier story over the truer one. At the bottom, he wrote, You are my family. You have always been my family. I don't deserve you, but I'm asking if I can still be yours. Tears blurred the ink. I looked up at him. You didn't need to write all this, I said. I did, he replied. Because if I ever forget again, I want you to be able to hand this to me and say, You knew better once. I folded the letter carefully. In that case, I said, I'll put it where the important things go. I walked to the small wooden box on the shelf in the hallway. It held his baby bracelet from the hospital, the first Mother's Day card he'd made me in kindergarten, the program from his high school graduation, a photo of him with his arm around me at the county fair when he was 10. Both of us sunburned and laughing. I added the letter to the box when I came back. He was sitting at the table, looking smaller than I remembered. So? I said, sitting across from him. Tell me the truth. Are you scared? He nodded, terrified. He said, Of court, of money. Of being a bad father. Of turning into him. You're not him, I said. You came back, he swallowed. Kelsey says she'll fight dirty, he said. She says she'll make sure everyone knows about the job thing, about the debt. She'll paint me as unstable, irresponsible, poor. Let her, I said. Poor is not a moral failing. You did a stupid thing. You're fixing it. Courts care more about who shows up than who has the nicest kitchen. He smiled faintly. Do you think my kid's going to hate me? He asked quietly. For not giving them that influencer life. If they ever do, I said, bring them to me. I will show them what an unfilmed childhood looks like. They can decide for themselves. We sat there a long time, talking about baby names, about daycare, about the possibility of shared custody, about therapy. I insisted he go. Your father left wounds. I said, you've been handing them out like party favors without realizing. It's time you looked at them. He didn't argue. Months passed. The baby was born in late autumn. On a gray day that smelled like rain, Daniel called me from the hospital. It's a boy, he said, voice thick with awe. He's perfect, Ma. What did you name him? I asked. He hesitated. Can you come see? He asked. I want to tell you in person. My heart thudded. I'll be there as fast as my old legs allow. I said. I walked into that hospital room with my breath caught in my chest. Kelsey was propped up in the bed, hair surprisingly undone, face bare. It made her look younger, smaller, human. She looked at me like she wasn't sure whether to sneer or cry. Hi, Lorraine. She said. Hi, I replied. How are you feeling? Like I pushed out a watermelon, she said. But okay, she shifted the bundle in her arms, revealing a tiny, scrunched up face. This is him, she said. I approached cautiously, as if I might startle the baby. He was pink and wrinkled and perfect, a little tuft of dark hair on his head. Tiny fingers curled around nothing. What did you name him? I asked again. Daniel glanced at Kelsey. She nodded once. His name is James. He said. James Lawrence Bennett. I looked up sharply. Lawrence, I repeated. That's after you, he said. Lorraine. We played with it. James Lord James. Lawrence sounded right. We wanted him to have your strength in his name. My throat closed. I reached out, very gently, and touched the baby's cheek with the back of my finger. Hello, James, I whispered. Welcome to the mess. Kelsey watched me, something unreadable in her gaze. The agency called. She said suddenly. They wanted to know when we were going to start filming, and I asked. She looked away. I told them I changed my mind, she said. That, seeing him, it felt wrong. The nurse came in and just held him like he was a person, not a prop. I don't know. Maybe I'm hormonal. Maybe your son got to me with all his let the baby be a baby talk. She rolled her eyes at herself. They said we were walking away from a big opportunity, she went on. That other couples would kill for this chance. That we were turning down money we clearly needed. And what did you say? I asked. She met my eyes. I said I'd rather be broke than hate myself. She said quietly. For the first time since I'd met her, I saw more than sharp edges. I saw a girl who'd grown up wanting things she thought only money could buy. Safety, status, distance from whatever hurt her. I saw someone who, like my son, had let fear dress up as ambition. People change, I said softly, sometimes even in hospital rooms. She snorted, then winced. Don't make me laugh, she said. It hurts. I sat with them for an hour, passing James back and forth, memorizing his tiny noises. When a nurse came in and announced visiting hours were over, I kissed the baby's forehead and placed him back in his mother's arms on my way out. Daniel walked me to the door. Thank you, he said. For what? I asked. For opening the door that night, he said. For not letting your pride keep you from being my mom. For not making me reap alone. I squeezed his hand. You'll make your own rose from here on out, I said. Just remember what seeds you're planting, now, at 71 when I sit alone in my little kitchen with the chipped countertops and the squeaky chair. I think about that night at 3 a.m. when my son stood shivering on my porch, and the night 2 months before when he told me I wasn't family anymore. Both are true. Both happened, but only one gets to define us. If you are listening to this, and your child has said something like that to you, you're not family anymore. You're dead to me. I don't need you. I won't lie to you and say it doesn't mean anything. Words have weight, they bruise. But I will tell you this, sometimes those words are less about you and more about the stories someone else has told them, the partners whispering in their ears, the fears they can't name, the ghosts of their own childhoods wearing your face. You are allowed to set boundaries, to say no when they reach for what you can't afford to give, to keep your house, your sanity, your peace. You are not required to slam the door when they come back at 3 a.m. You are also not required to open it. That's the part no one tells you. Forgiveness is not a performance. It's a choice you make based on what you can live with when the house is quiet again. I open mine. Not because I forgot what he said, but because I remembered who he was before he said it. And I believed he could find his way back. He did. He sits at my table now with James on his lap, feeding him mashed banana and complaining about daycare prices. Sometimes Kelsey joins us, hair in a messy bun, still a little too obsessed with her phone but learning to put it down when the baby laughs. Sometimes we argue, old habits. Sometimes I have to say, no, I'm not co-signing that loan, or no, I won't watch him so you can go to some networking party that's really a bar. I am not a saint. I am a woman with limits. But when James runs through my house, knocking over the same cheap glasses his father once broke, he calls me grandma, not Lorraine, not the maid, not the asset. Double quotes grandma. And when my son introduces me now, he says, "This is my mom. Everything good about me started with her." I still don't have much. A small pension, an old house, a wooden box full of folded up apologies and crayon drawings. But I have something some folks with mansions never get, a family that learned the hard way that you don't measure a person's worth in equity or content or how much they can leverage for you. You measure it in who shows up at 3 in the morning when they've got nowhere else to go, and who opens the door